Sanbona, before we start, I'd like to mention that I invited the CEO of Standard Bank, Mr. Sim Shabalala, to be part of the public conversation. In turn, he unleashed the director of the biggest law firm in Africa to threaten me. So I know that they're listening and they're part of the conversation. They're welcome to step in whenever suitable. The fraud. I went to a dealership, I chose a car, they gave me the price, I paid cash for the car. They told me to come 2 days later as they needed to service, register, all of that. And when I went to collect the car, I was sat down and I was told that they decided to send the international payment back for whatever reasons they explained. And their suggestion was that we use local banks to finance the car. But because I'm not domiciled in South Africa, I had to use my foundation as the buyer and then sign as surety. So this was okay. I did that. And a day later, I got an email that Standard Bank has approved the loan. 15th April 2015, I went to collect the car. I signed all the legal documents, the installment sale agreement, the contract, and the insurance papers. At the end of the month, when they deducted, they took double the agreed, well, nearly double the agreed installment. So I called Standard Bank and I said, there's a mistake. You have taken nearly double what we agreed upon. And they said, who are you? We don't know you. I said, oh, the car is registered in my foundation. And they said, no, this is not registered in your foundation's name, and neither is it registered in your name. We don't know you. The following month, they took nearly double the installment again. I went to Standard Bank. I spoke. I tried everything I could. They were just not listening to me. The third month, they took the double installment again. So I wrote a letter of demand. I said I demand to see the installment sale agreement that I signed because it has the correct installment in it. Secondly, I'm going to stop paying until you tell me who my car is registered to and until I see the installment sale agreement that I signed. So what I did, I went to the bank, I stopped the payment, I opened a separate escrow account, and I deposited the wrong installment that they were depositing, the double installment. I deposited that into the new account every month so that whatever they do, they cannot accuse me of not having the installment. So I made sure that every month I deposit that installment, and I just sat back. I went to Rosebank Police Station. I got them to sign the odometer of the car, give me an affidavit, and park the car. So I stopped using the car, I stopped paying, I bought a new car, and I waited for Standard Bank to come back. About 3 months later, they wrote a letter, but the letter was registered to my daughter. And in this letter, they were saying, you haven't paid your installments in 3 months. So we went to Standard Bank and we said, there's obviously a mistake. I don't know where my daughter fits in, but the car was bought by my foundation, which is the account that you were deducting from. And secondly, I signed as surety. My daughter comes from school. She's a student. She's never worked. I don't see how the bank could have financed a car worth millions to a child. That's where the fight started. Standard Bank then decided to go to court to go and fight for the return of the car. Standard Bank did not disappoint. They rushed to court to apply to repossess my car. In their particulars of claim, they had to attach the installment sale agreement that I had been begging for months. And 8-9 months after the purchase of the car, for the first time, I saw a copy of the installment sale agreement. And to my shock, it was a completely different document. This one came from a dealership I have never dealt with. The contracting party was changed. The address did not exist. The employer did not exist. The engine number was changed. The chassis number was changed. The year of manufacturing for the car was made younger by 3 years. The price was highly inflated. The signature was forged. So this was so obvious that it didn't even worry me. I just thought Standard Bank is a juristic person. I'm not going to point fingers. I'll do the responsible thing. I'll go to Standard Bank. I will show them what the problem has been all along, and then we can sort it out. When I got to Standard Bank, they looked me in the eye and they said, this document is exactly the document that we approved your installment sale agreement on. It's the correct document. There's nothing wrong with it. They refused to listen to me. So I said, okay, then we go to court. They applied for default judgment. I defended the action. We got a date, got to court. We were on the roll. We waited all day to be called. Every case was called except us. Little did we know that Standard Bank, behind my back, went to some acting judge in the chambers and got the default judgment approved behind my back. So I went home thinking my case is not called, and a few days later, I was going for a run in the morning, and when I stepped out of the yard, the street was just chock-a-block. It was these cars that pull other cars. They had 2 of them. They had police, and there were just a number of people in the street and a sheriff. So as I stepped out of the yard, they stopped me and they asked me if I live in the yard, and I said yes, and they said, oh, they're here to collect a car. And I said to them, on what basis? We went to court and there was nobody, our case was not called. And they showed me a default judgment for the day, and they showed me a writ of execution that has been approved. All of this was getting more strange. So I said to them, I'm not releasing the car. They can do whatever they want, and I went for my run. 10 kilometers later, I came back, they were waiting. I go for my run at 5 a.m., so they must have arrived there much earlier, because when I came out, they had parked outside. They were drinking coffee from their flasks. So I refused to give them the car. I had parked the car deliberately in a manner that even if I'm not there, no one can take it out. So they brought these big cars inside the yard, and they tried to break the house, and eventually 8 hours later they got an instruction from the bank not to break the house, but to leave. So on this particular day, I actually realized that maybe I'm in more trouble than I envisaged. I realized that I'm dealing with very unscrupulous characters. I had identified the fraud in the restructured installment sale agreement. Now I had just discovered a second fraud where they went to chambers to find an acting judge to fraudulently grant a default judgment whilst I'm sitting in court. So these were two very serious things. And then thirdly, they go and get the writ of execution. They come to my house at 4 o'clock in the morning with a squad. There were at least 20 policemen, and everybody was on the phone taking instructions. They were intimidating me. They were playing tricks. I just remained calm. I went to the house. I made them fresh pots of coffee. I gave them fresh scones. Then I went to my study to work. In preparation for the default judgment hearing, I had unpacked the installment sale agreement, alphabet by alphabet. And I had at least 20 points that were violations. So I was very ready for that. I knew exactly what was in the installment sale agreement. But on that day, I realized I need to look at something much higher than that. So the first thing I did was to look for the best PI, private investigator, because I wanted to understand what exactly is happening. I found a gentleman called Mr. Henry Kruger, who came from the Brixton Murder and Robbery Squad. He was recommended as a very, very meticulous private investigator. Secondly, I started preparing papers. I realized that there's an active writ of execution. So I prepared urgent papers to apply for a stay of that writ. Secondly, I prepared papers to rescind the default judgment that was granted fraudulently. Thirdly, I decided to write to the banking ombudsman, and I explained this entire story, adding my notes for the fraudulent installment sale agreement. Then after all those papers were ready, I then wrote a letter to Standard Bank. I addressed the letter to the head of risk and forensics. I offered myself and my daughter to be tested against the fraudulent installment sale agreement. I copied the banking ombudsman again. I copied joint CEOs, Mr. Ben Kruger and Mr. Sim Shabalala. I copied the head of vehicle finance. I copied the head of the fraud department. I copied all of them. And I sent the letter and I said, there is a problem. And I demand that the bank looks at this problem. I said, I understand that the CEOs have a fiduciary duty towards the bank, but this, I can invoke negligence if the CEOs are going to neglect this fraud. I'd like this fraud to be looked at, and I'm submitting myself and my daughter to be tested whichever way. Within an hour of sending the letter to Standard Bank, I received two correspondence. One was from it was an electronic mail from a Mr. Joop Dekker, who said he's the head of risk and forensics. He copied the banking ombudsman and he said he's rejecting the offer to test my daughter and I because the bank is of the view that the installment sale agreement is authentic and valid. Secondly, there was a knock on my door and I got an urgent hand-delivered letter from a law firm, Holsteins and Associates, who said they were representing Standard Bank. And the contents of the letter was a warning or threat that I must never write to the CEOs of Standard Bank again. Anything I want to say, I must say it through the lawyers. The first confirmation for me was that as of that day, both CEOs of Standard Bank, Mr. Ben Kruger and Mr. Sim Shabalala, knew of the fraud They were personally informed by me. Instead of attending to the fraud, they got lawyers to threaten me. Then I rushed to court to go and file the papers. I filed both applications, the one to rescind the default judgment and the urgent application for an interdict to stay the writ of execution. After that, I came back, I went to the sheriff, asked him to serve both Standard Bank and the lawyers, and then I personally walked into Standard Bank and served them the documents for both applications. Then I personally went to the attorneys and served them the papers. I told them that it's an urgent application and they have to appear in Gauteng, South Gauteng High Court the following afternoon. From there, I drove straight to Sandton Police Station and I opened a fraud case against Standard Bank with all the facts and the proof. When I got home, dead tired that evening, I had Mr. Henry Kruger, the private investigator, with two of his partners, waiting for me with reams and reams of feedback. The private investigating team brought me the worst news. First of all, they told me this is not a mistake. There's many people going through it. They've got clients who have gone through exactly the same thing. They told me this is a scam that is run by a syndicate of very, very senior people. The syndicate involves law enforcement, it involves sheriffs, auctioneers, the dealerships of exotic cars, but importantly, the heads of finance in banks. Because for these deals to be approved over and over again, it needs the head of finance to sign off. At this point, I'd like to explain how the risk process works within a bank. There's somebody who wants to buy a car, I don't know what cars cost, for 50,000 Rand. Maybe just the manager can approve that. If you're buying a Mercedes-Benz that is 800,000 Rands, it's a different quorum of the risk credit committee that approves it. But there are cars that need the full quorum of the credit committee to approve over and above the head of finance. Not only because of the cost, but because some of the cars are very dangerous. So they look at age, they look at how much do you earn, they look at do you have immovable property. You can't go and buy a car for 2, 3, 4, 5 million Rands if you don't even have a home. So they look at all of those things to see if you are stable enough to qualify for this. And there are cars that are not sold to people who are younger than a certain age. So they look at all of that scoring to qualify you. So the head of finance is very important for this level of cars because he has to put his final signature. Then they told me what has happened to my transaction exactly. This information was imperative for me to receive before going to attend agent court tomorrow. So I went to agent court. I presented everything I know. I presented how the National Credit Act has been violated. I presented the fact that I had asked for the installment sale agreement 12 times. I had all my emails and I had all the rejections. I had every piece of document. The judge was a very, very smart lady who asked me questions for 2 hours. She pierced me left, right, and center. And at the end, she said to me, I am satisfied that there's a possible alleged fraud here, and I'm going to grant the interdict to stay the writ of execution pending the rescission application to be heard. I left the court with my interdict and I came back home. I wrote a very strong letter to Standard Bank, and I still copied both CEOs. I copied every head of department, finance, fraud department, risk, forensics, and I copied the attorneys. And I said, now I know what is happening, and now I insist. This is not a matter of the courts. We are wasting courts' time and we are wasting money on legal fees. I actually said to them, if this case has to go through trial, by the time the case gets to trial, we would have bought 4 of these cars. That's how much the legal costs are going to cost. Whereas we can sit around the table and reconstruct my installment sale agreement the way it was. I pay the car off and then we part in peace. They refused, but I had my interdict to stay the writ of execution. Almost immediately after urgent court and the interdict, I receive an unknown call from a male voice which has a very urgent tone. He's insisting to meet with me because he has a surprise for me. And I say, sir, I don't know you and I don't like surprises. Also, I'm out of the country. I'm not in South Africa, so I cannot meet with you. Can you tell me what this is about? And he says, okay, they have purchased the latest model of my vehicle for me as a gift. But in presenting it, there are terms and conditions. So I tell him I don't like freebies and I don't accept gifts from people I don't know. I don't need a car. I don't need anything. So I thank him profusely and I say, thank you very much for your kind gesture, but please don't worry about me. I'm good. About a day later, I'm on holiday now. About a day later, I receive a call from my butler in South Africa, and he says there were urgent papers served on him like a minute ago. And I asked him to read. Then I realized that Standard Bank is challenging the interdict. So I cancel everything, I fly back home, and I start preparing papers. The first problem with the papers is that they're only challenging my daughter. They're calling my daughter to court. My name doesn't appear anywhere, and the fight is against my daughter. So I do a joinder application to be enjoined as a party. I motivate why I'm supposed to be a party to this process. And then I respond to their papers. We file everything. We go to court. I think it's the 22nd of December 2016. This matter lasts for 3 days because Standard Bank thought it's just going to be a hit and run. They bring top lawyers and senior counsels. We've got no one. It's just my daughter and I. So we go, and my attitude that day is that I know Standard Bank has got deep pockets, but I have a brain, I have integrity, and I have all the evidence I need to prove my case. We get to court, they refuse to allow the judge to hear me. They put my daughter on the stand. They are grilling this child. They are tearing her into small pieces. At some point, I realized that, what is this? Like apartheid times. I'm being bullied for something, I've done nothing wrong, and I'm being bullied like this. I remember feeling the table. You know, they've got those wooden tables. I remember feeling the table to feel, does it make a sound that people can attend to me? And I started like madly, like banging my head on the table. I started banging my head on the table. And I remember it was Judge Fori. I remember the judge said that there's something wrong happening there. What's happening? So my daughter is not like me. She's very calm. She calmly said, Judge, she wants to speak. It's her car, it's her money, it's her case. But Standard Bank is deliberately preventing her from defending herself. This has got nothing to do with me. I've never owned a car of this sort. I've never opened an account with Standard Bank. I've never opened an account anyway. So it is her account and she wants to talk. And Standard Bank objected. They objected. I went crazy. The judge said, are you under oath? I said, yes, I'm under oath. I did the joinder and I did the responses. It's signed by me. The judge says, I'll hear you. I stood up and I started telling the judge what this is about. Again, this is urgent court. The judge has not had a chance to look at what this is all about. I go to town. I tell the judge step by step where all of this started. I show the judge everything I utter. I have a paper to prove it. I show the judge everything. I explain how I've driven less than 1,000 kilometers on this car. Less than 400 kilometers it was. I show him the affidavit from the Rosebank police station. I show him that the car has been parked for 17 months. I haven't had pleasure to use this car. I show him the account with the 17 installments. I tell him step by step. I show him the report to show him how Standard Bank works. I show him how they got the order to take my car. I show him everything step by step. Standard Bank is going crazy trying to object from me talking. The judge said, sit down. I tell the judge everything step by step. The judge says, Standard Bank, these two people are laymen. You are here with senior counsels. Your papers are all over the place. These people have got paginated bundles of the same of the correct amount. Their papers are impeccable. The judge says, in my life, this is in a transcript. The judge says, in my life, I have never seen a more meticulous client. He says, I can't take this person's car. Everything she has done, I can't take it. I can't find fault in her. So what I need is that we adjourn. I need to go and read these papers. I need us to adjourn, come back tomorrow, and you come and tell me more about this story. So we go home. And from the holes that I had in court that day, I start putting together, do you hear when I say everything? I start unpacking everything. I put everything step by step to prove my case to the judge. We go back the following day. I talk the entire day. The Standard Bank's senior counsel is busy saying, do you have any more to say, or can you stop talking now? I just ignore them. I go on and I tell the judge what this is about. The judge says, I'm sorry, I can't take this woman's car. Then my daughter asks to stand up and talk. My daughter says, first of all, here are the cases. This is not even an urgent matter. Here's the cases that prove that if a matter has got a record, like it was like 1,000 pages, a record this high, it cannot be in urgent court. So this matter does not even belong in this court. The judge says, do you have a case? And now I am shaking because I don't know what this child is talking about. She produces a case. When I was sleeping, she was doing her own research. She produces all the cases that support what she's saying. And the judge says, that's it. I need time to go and read. Long and short, 3 days later, the judge says, Standard Bank, I'm sorry, I can't take this woman's car. I give them my keys, I said, to prove that I'm not even using the car. Here are my keys to the car. But nobody is touching my car. The judge says I can't take her car. And actually this case does not belong in my court. You must go blah, blah, blah. Apply for joinder in the appropriate court and proceed with this case. But my ruling is she stays with her car. This 3-day court hearing was the crux of this case. It synthesized the matter for both parties, but importantly for the court. My biggest achievement on this day was not keeping the car, but it was forcefully draining the truth out of Standard Bank. I put so much fire in this man's belly that truth inadvertently snuck out of his mouth. In the heated exchanges, the Standard Bank senior counsel conceded. In court, this is in the transcript. He said, "We can't deny it. There is indeed fraud here." And as he said that, you must remember Standard Bank does not send 4 people to court. They have very deep pockets. They send a squad. And remember, I was not a lawyer at this time. I had to conduct research to conduct this case. I was not a lawyer. I was just relying on my knowledge of finance and banking. So as he said that, the judge said, "Huh?" And he said, yes, there's fraud, my lord. And as he said that, somebody pulled him and the squad is sailing up. You could see what is in trouble. And he tried to recover, and he said, "My lord, there is fraud, but the fraud is not from Standard Bank. The fraud is from the dealership." Yay! You know, I say this with humility, and I'm not going to mention all my qualifications, but let's just talk about the finance strand. Forget the diplomas and the certificates. BCom Finance, BCom Honors, Financial Management, Masters in Commerce, Financial Management, Masters in Business Administration, Strategic Finance, Executive MBA, Strategic Finance, PhD Finance. And with all that knowledge, you come and tell me a dealership can commit fraud through a bank? That was Alabama. I took the NATIS registration certificate of the car. I put it in front of him. And I said, "Bring your fraudulent installment sale agreement." Ngati, read the engine number. He read it. Ngati, read it here. It was different. Ngati, read the VIN number. Read it here. It was different. Read the year of the car. How can a car be born twice? Once 1 year and once 3 years later. Ngati, read this. Everything was changed. Ngati, the job of the biggest bank in the country, that is a financial provider to 20 million clients, they have a fiduciary duty to do things properly. The Vehicle Finance Department has a credit committee that is obliged to look at these things. You know, there's the National Credit Act where they have to look at a number of things to make sure that the person qualifies and there's no reckless lending. But there's also responsibility to the asset. Here's the difference I want to explain. You see, when you buy a house, you're going to pay it in 20 or 30 years. But the day that house is registered to your name, it is your house. A car is different. What happens is when they loan you the money to buy a car, the car remains in the ownership of the bank. The bank owns your car until the day you pay the last cent, and then they change ownership. So you are financing an asset that you have not even looked at of this amount? So now that fraud was established, I moved to the bank's complicity on deliberately defrauding unsuspecting clients. This became the main issue. With 11 years banking experience, I confidently told the judge that the dealership can concoct all the fraud at once, but the ultimate decision to grant finance lies with the bank, and only after diligent credit assessment. You see, the NATIS registration certificate is the ID of the car. There is no form that can be filled with contradictory information. They have to match. How do you grant a loan of this amount with a form that doesn't match the ID? Just that does not make sense. So, in effect, Standard Bank financed an asset that does not exist. The car that they financed does not exist. It doesn't even have an ID. So what I did was to write to the CEO again. You go to the head. And I said to him, now that fraud is established, you have to go and look at the approval form and see who signed that form. Then you need to conduct an investigation. Imagine our Honorable General Mkhwanazi telling the country that there's rot in law enforcement. Imagine if the president would stand up and defend law enforcement. No. President Ramaphosa established a commission of inquiry. President. Did Mr. Sim Shabalala establish a committee to investigate this fraud? Now there's proof. There's a concession in front of a judge of the High Court. Did Mr. Sim Shabalala even look at this fraud? So this is my question. What is he protecting? Who is he protecting? I wrote an email and I asked him directly. I said, Mr. Shabalala, who are you protecting? Today, Mr. Sim Shabalala, I ask you in front of the entire country, who are you protecting? Who signed that approval form? Who financed a car worth millions that doesn't exist, that didn't have an ID? Please answer South Africans and tell us who signed that form. And then I need you to tell us why you failed to investigate. Where is your commission of inquiry? So, judge made his ruling. I remain with the car. Standard Bank requested visiting viewing rights at a mutually convenient time. And you know I'm reasonable, right? So I agreed. Considering their investment, I felt it was a reasonable request, pending the final outcome of the impasse. We also agreed that an independent person, like a sheriff, would keep the car keys that I offered. All this detail became part of the new court order from Judge Fourie. This development, however, infuriated Standard Bank, and this became the beginning of unprecedented violence. The tide also turned a different direction when forensic reports started flowing in. If you remember, I had reported the fraud case 685 of April 2017 at Sentin Police Station. And we got tested. They are very advanced. You close your eyes and they tell you what to write with your right hand and the left hand. It's just a very thorough exam. So I had submitted both my daughter and I. And a warrant officer, Maribota, from the SAPS Forensic Laboratory in Pretoria. I had never met the person, but obviously they tested the thing, and she wrote a thorough report that confirmed that the installment sale agreement was a forgery. Then I had appointed a lady I got on the internet, Miss Terry Elmalay. This woman was very, very advanced. She would feed your handwriting and your signature into a system that then plays music, because she says writing, once you think you are looking, you are writing, you're actually writing with your brain. So there's no way you can forge somebody's signature, no matter how exact it looks. When you put it in this system, it tells you if they were written by the same person. Even if the signatures are different, when you put them in the system, it can confirm if the signatures were done by the same person. She wrote a scathing report, which also confirmed that the installment sale agreement was a forgery. Then my private investigator had taken us to two licensed forensic experts, and we were tested there differently as well. So when these reports came in, with my kindness, I shared with Standard Bank and I said, hey, here's the proof. And still, I called on Mr. Shabalala. I said, here's the proof that this is a forgery. You have a duty to investigate, because unless you are part of this syndicate that was exposed, there is no reason why you shouldn't investigate. What are you hiding? What are you protecting? I tell you, Standard Bank unleashed their wrath. We encountered so many violent incidents. I just couldn't cope. I don't want to traumatize you with the gory details. Unless Liwatlam goes, tell me. So at this point, Standard Bank objects to every application I make to end this ordeal. They apply for a myriad of frivolous interlocutory applications. They keep me in court permanently. I can't focus on anything else. I'm completely consumed. Whenever I return home to Switzerland, I'm immediately dragged back to court. The worst is, before every court appearance, there's an incident, an intimidating incident. So I don't stop writing to all of them, insisting that this is not even a real case. It's not even a real legal problem. So I insist that we sit around the table and resolve this at once. Once we reconstruct this thing, I can pay the balance and I can go back home and we end this thing. I've had enough. Anyway, I'm waiting for them to challenge the forensic reports that confirm that they committed fraud. On the other hand, I am sitting on Mr. Sim Shabalala to investigate and tell me who this person is. I've narrowed it down for him, and I don't understand why he's not taking action. So I write to him consistently. And Mina, my politeness has an end. There's a point where I lose it. So I lose it, and I start asking them, what is this? Like really white supremacy state? Is that what it is? Where in my time, when I grew up, besiphetwe amabhunu asiphethe njengezinja, but at least you knew ukuthi u-abuse amabhunu. Namhlanje they are renting melanin to incite black on black violence. Namhlanje sihlukumezwa abantu basekhaya. So I ask this, is this what it is? I don't understand what's happening. There's joint CEOs, Mr. Ben Kruger, and then there's Mr. Shabalala. Who is who? Who has the power here? Who is being sent to abuse black people, and who is the boss? So I ask this. Anyway, I think I sent this email on Friday. On Sunday, I wake up, I go for a run with my daughter. I normally arrive back home first. So when I get home, I lock my key on my bra. I open the door, open the tap, I need water. And as I'm drinking water, I can see a set of black tights coming towards me. And in my head, I'm thinking, did this child run in front of me today? That's impossible. And as I'm thinking this, I see a second set of legs, a third set, then I know what I'm being robbed. So I rush to the door. I'm right at the door. I rush to the door so that I can come out and stop her from coming in. And as I rush out, this guy holds me from the back. He hits me. So I say, look, you can take everything you want. Tell me what you want. You can take it. Here are my keys. Take everything you want. And then bakuletha izandla. So they tie your feet first, tight. and then they tie your hands behind you, and then they tie the tied hands to the feet. So they do this entire operation. At this time, and they're giving me facts. Like, yeah, when fly first class, when you do this, who do you think you are? They're on top of me. But they're telling me such accurate details, as in what seat number I sit in. So I'm thinking, what is this? It goes on, and Bati, we have to wait for your daughter. Okay? I think 10, 15 minutes later, it sounded like 10 days, but a while later, I just heard, and I knew they've got her. And I just said, it's all okay, Sissy. Just be calm and don't fight anything. Just let them do whatever they want. So I said, okay, we are here. Salasoy 2, you can take whatever you want. Where is the safe? I tell them it's upstairs. Take us there. I take them to the safe. So, Mina, I don't keep my jewelry in the safe. I keep my jewelry in different places. In the Baki flower, you'll find my expensive watch there. You'll find my ring in the washing basket. And put my jewelry in different places. So I'm thinking I must offer them the jewelry because they can take things and go. But you know, Bafuni safe. When they opened the safe, I thought they were going to be angry because there's no valuables there. It's only my important documents and flash disk, what do you call them, USB things. So I thought they were going to be upset to find this and not find diamonds. No, they open a bag and and they throw it in the bag. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Show us your study. I show them my study. So I'm meticulous with my documentation. My filing is very, very neat. They go. So I've got a block here, Standard Bank, with 16 files. All my files are white. They've got my H, ngaphandle, and then I label what file it is and what number it is. They take the entire 16 files and they throw it in their big bags. And I'm thinking, what? Anyway, they pack. This guy, young shy. And so now I'm like a frog because so my hands at the back are tied to my legs. So they keep on beating. Need to go this guy, bruh. I just ran 10 kilograms. 10 kilometers, 10 kilograms. I just ran 10 kilometers. I'm thirsty. Don't untie me. Just open the tap so water can come into my mouth. Drags me to my bathroom, opens the tap, and I literally empty the tap. We come back. They want a second safe. I don't have a second safe. They want a second safe. I know you won't believe me when I tell you, Uguti, for 4 hours, I was being beaten up. I didn't know what this is about. Eventually, one guy, Uti, I need your discs. Need what discs? At the camera discs. They're in the garage because I'm thinking like the camera instantly, you know, the CCTV. So that the cameras are in the garage. No, I want the discs. In my garage, I have a big wall of CDs. So everything is in the garage. Ati, let's go. Must be a garage. Told Linda told. What do you want? Ati, I want the files, the discs that have got the Standard Bank footage. Oh, you should have just said that. Back in my study. Go back to the study. I give them the files. And then he's threatening me. I am so angry by this time. I'm going to hit you. Need to go be a man. Untie me. Untie me and I'll show you what beating somebody up is all about. This guy gets upset. Takes me, throws me to the wall, but I hit my neck so badly that I actually passed out. So when I eventually come back, I notice under my armpit, I notice my daughter is naked. Yo. My heart leaves my body. So I'm asking this child ngesizulu. But you know, labantwana be-ice cream, bacabanga ngesingisi. I ask her ngesizulu ngiphendula nge-English. So ngiyambuza ngithi kuye, awugqokanga, unqunu? Yes, they took my clothes off. They said they're going to rape me. And they answer. They obviously heard what she's saying. They say we all have full-blown AIDS. When you hear her screaming, you must know that she's infected. My daughter says, "Mother, I won't traumatize you. I won't scream." I start screaming. All along, I was obedient. I was doing everything they want. But you see what my daughter has just told me? It's not going to happen. The things that are so tight that I can't shift, I can't do anything. So I'm thinking, I'm trying to think fast. What do I do? Let me offer them jewelry. I say to this guy, did you see my Rolex? I have a gold Rolex on my drawer. And a Rolex? It is. I have a gold Rolex. Come. How do I come? Like untie something so that I can come with you. So as ngisho kanjalo and they're following me, I say to my daughter, "Go." And I show them little bits of this, and it was so funny. They find my cufflinks and they say, "What is this for?" It's to tie my shed. To tie your shed? How? So I show them. They take. And as they are taking, I'm thinking, this won't last. When they finish taking everything, they'll still go back to my daughter. And I start screaming on top of my voice. Now, the one thing I didn't mention in previous videos is that whilst we are going through all of this, I am mourning the death of my older daughter, who was brutally murdered. So, I don't know what to do. In all this time, I was praying. I was praying that they finish and go. You know, the Bible verse says, God knows how many hairs you have in your head. He knows your needs before you speak. So I don't need to tell God, let these people go. He knows what I need. I'm just saying, God, I thank you for letting these people finish and go. I leave God aside. I call my daughter. Mackenzie! I'm screaming on top of my voice. I call my daughter and I say, you know I can handle abuse, but your sister will not manage this. I am talking on top of my voice. I'm screaming. I'm calling her sister. I say, come in. I say, come in. I didn't know what else to do. They all rush. Where is she? Where is she? My daughter is calm, I told you. She says, who? They say, the person she's talking about. Who is she? He says, it's my sister. Where is she? She's dead. Huh? Yeah, she's dead. Your mother speaks to dead people? My daughter says, and they respond when she talks to them. You have never seen people vanish out of my house so quickly. 2 minutes, they were gone. The boss comes back. He looks me in the face. He says to me, I'm sorry, my sister. His eyes were so honest at this moment. When he said that, I actually received it. He said, I'm sorry. He said, I'm at work. I also have to feed my children. He said, this is a job I needed to be able to feed my children. He says, I'm very sorry I did this to you. He says, is there anything I can do? Maybe phone somebody to come and help you when we leave. I say, no, you can untie me. Just loosen my hands so that I can go find scissors and help myself. I still have a wound. You won't see it now, but the day you meet with me, you'll see it on the side. He yanks this thing open. No, he didn't open it, but it loosened it. But he yanks it and it goes straight into my bone. He yanks it open. He says, "I'm sorry, my sister." I say, "No problem. I know you won't believe me." But when he said sorry, I received it and I forgave him. He told me he's employed. He told me he needs to feed his children. I said, "It's okay." In no time, kushu, start motor, boom. So, ngiyahobuluza nye bathroom, I take scissors, I cut myself, I cut these things, I cut my daughter. When I go to my study, I notice a long person, a man, lying on my floor. And I'm thinking they killed somebody, because I didn't see this body before. But what had happened was, when my gate was open, they had put, because at the gate we have the guard house with a bathroom. So they had taken my guard and kept him there, put his head in the toilet. When I came, they lifted the head and they said, "Who is this? Is this the mother or the daughter?" And he obviously said it's the mother. And then they phoned the house to say the mother is coming, and then they put the head down. When my daughter came in, they then took him to the house, tied, and then put him in my study. So I look at this and I say, it's my security. So he's tied, he can't speak. So we tremble, we take the phone, they've taken my computers, everything, we look for the phone, we phone the police, or we press the alarm or something, I don't remember how we called the police. The police arrived not so long from there. They take statements, they do everything. But I am injured. Thank God they didn't touch my daughter. They didn't even clap her. They didn't hurt her. They didn't do anything to her. The emotional trauma that followed this ordeal, I can never explain it. I've had rough moments. I've seen a lot of bad things. As we continue on this journey, you will learn how much I have suffered in my life. But I must tell you this was the most traumatizing experience of my life. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. Even when there's lightning outside, I used to jump out of my bed and think there were people there. I just couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. And as I'm busy processing this, I get an urgent application from Standard Bank. I don't even remember what they're applying for. Rulnisi or something. I don't remember what they were applying for. I get an urgent application. You must remember, you don't just show up in court. You need to respond to the papers. My head is not working. I try and do the papers. I go and file and save. But I am traumatized. And my biggest fear is what's going to happen a day before this hearing. I call the movers. I say, pack everything. Pack everything. Pack my house off. I moved to a hotel. A day before this urgent hearing, we're at the hotel. I am finalizing the heads of argument. I'm putting things together, and My daughter says she's hungry. I say, order. So she ordered our meals. The food comes. My stomach is knotted. I can't eat. My daughter is hungry. I ask her to eat. She eats. I'm busy doing the papers. I'm filing everything in order. I don't remember what I called her for. Make me tea or something. I don't remember what I asked for. The child is not answering. My daughter is very respectful. I don't remember what I asked for. She's not answering. I call her. She's not answering. I stand up. Now I'm going to bunyelele pants. Umanzi nte kuphuma phambili nasemuva. Amehla wekho kumhlophe. Yey. Nyamvusa lo mntana akangizwa. In that state, I take my phone to try and call the ambulance. My phone is blocked. I use the hotel's phone to call reception for help. The line is cut. I open the door. I run down. Oh, as I go out, press the lift is off. I take the steps. I run down like a mad woman. I go to reception. I take the phone. I say, ambulance, ambulance. We phone the ambulance. I'm on Discovery, so you've got this 911 thing. They arrive in no time. The people who come and attend to my daughter, they say, Madam, we can't take this person. She will not reach hospital. We need to first treat her here. I say, do whatever you can. I'm medically trained. I am shivering. I can't take this child. I can't even think what's wrong. I stand back. There was a young lady, very young lady. And she says, I need to do this. She gives her a drip. She gives her oxygen. She injects her. She does all the things she can do. In about half an hour, she starts coming back. She says, now we have to rush to hospital. They load her onto the stretcher. They leave. I take my car keys, I jump into my car, I follow them. We get to hospital. This woman understands the emergency at hand. She comes out, she pulls my child, and she runs in. They pump her. I go back to the hotel in the morning. It was about, I don't know, maybe 3 o'clock when all of this happened, or maybe 2 o'clock when the ambulance came. I go back to the hotel in the morning. I put together all her vomit. Everything she excreted, I put it into different buckets. I did not eat, so I take the food that I didn't eat, and I take all the waste that I collected. I run to a laboratory. I say to them, test everything and tell me what's in it. Will you believe me when I tell you that the poison in her vomit and her stool was the same poison in the food? Before I know it, it's time for court. If I don't arrive in court, they're going to grant an order in my absence. Who do you call at the time to go and stand for you in court? I leave my child in hospital, get into the car, drive to Pretoria. I walk in, I am a mess. I scream from the door, telling the judge what is happening. It was the kindest woman I'd ever come across. As I walk in, the Standard Bank people are talking. They're addressing the people. Look, she's late. The judge flips. Didn't you hear? Her child is fighting for her life in hospital. Bangs the gavel. Cancel the entire thing. Go look after your daughter. I think by now you all have the picture. We do not have to go through all the court appearances. The documentary will do that for us. We also don't have to go through all the violent acts. You get the picture. What I think you do not get is what is really happening here. I think you still think this is about a car. It is not. And it never was. This was, and still is, a coordinated deflection strategy to derail me from healing a black mind from the injuries inflicted by apartheid. We are facing a new, sophisticated form of slavery, of continuing to oppress black people, using other black people, inciting black-on-black violence. My educational programs were disturbing their design of trapping a black mind in indignity. And to date, my program is still not allowed to heal our children. I'm still blocked. If it was about a car, Standard Bank would have welcomed my first offer to be tested by their own forensic department. They would have welcomed my repeated written requests to resolve this matter amicably outside the courtroom. So before, during, after every court hearing, I used to beg Standard Bank in writing to resolve this matter amicably. But they were relentless in their refusal until they were forced by one ethical judge of the High Court of South Africa. Are Standard Bank, Batifedil. Why is everybody glossing over facts? I've read the papers. What is the problem? So on the next video, I'm going to jump right to the end of the court process. And I'm going to relate just the last 2 court appearances that actually placed all the abuse on ice for a short while. Because even after the car issue was over, the violent derailment of my educational project persisted. Remember, we had researched and finalized 3 cantons for 3 very different educational offerings, customized to the specific canton, to the specific province. To date, all 3 programs are still blocked. So this is not about the car. Let's all see the bigger picture here. By this time, I've had enough of the attacks. So I decide to move from Johannesburg and go and live in Cape Town to hide. So I'm never in South Africa permanently. I live abroad. But because of my social projects, I come home every 4 to 6 weeks and then spend 2 to 3 days doing all the admin things and making sure everything is running properly, and then I go back. My daughter stays in a different place. So I'm so scared. We are both scared to ever tell each other where we are. Asas to banos mamele efonini We would say things and then we get funny phone calls. Anyway, we're very scared to say anything. We phone each other morning and night just to make sure everything is fine. So I'm back abroad. In my absence, this is now July 2018. In my absence, I get a message that the court granted a rule nisi, that my daughter must hand over the car to Standard Bank for safekeeping. What? So a rule nisi is a provisional or temporary court order that will be made final or binding on a future date unless the opposing party appears in court to show good cause why that should fail. I'm in Boston. I'm in the middle of a very important assignment. I have no way of coming back immediately. I asked to see the papers. They scan and send them. I read in shock. I immediately call court. I order a transcript. A transcript is everything. A transcript is a document that has everything that is said in court on that day. So after every court hearing, I have a habit of ordering the transcript and filing it so that hey, I've never seen people who can deny like this. Deny. So anyway, I keep the transcript. Mama Piga, I always show them. So on this occasion, I order the transcript to read exactly what is said to grant such an order. I read this thing with disgust. Anyway, sifuni lawyer manje ngoba there's no way I can go home. By luck, we get a brilliant lawyer to assist my daughter in my absence to defend this release. They respond to the matter. They get a date for the following month. Even the date they give me is the most busiest time for the assignment I'm doing. There's no way I can travel. And my daughter says, don't worry, I'll do it. They go. I try very hard to schedule the date to come to South Africa. I fail. My daughter goes to court with her lawyer, and she insists on defending herself. The judge that day is the Honorable Justice Fabricius. He asks her, Miss Hammond, where is your lawyer? She says, okay, first of all, angikho la mina, so this is hearsay, ne? So she says, hey, judge, lawyers complicate situations. I need a simple talk with you, namhlanje, without any legal jargon. One, I'm being abused by Standard Bank. I have never spoken to Standard Bank in my life. I have never opened an account at Standard Bank in my entire life. I have never bought a car in my life. I got a gift from my mother when I passed matric well, and that's the only car I've had ever since. I'm a student. She says, this is my mother's car, and this is my mother's installment sale agreement. Standard Bank is deliberately blocking her joinder application for 2 full years now. She has applied to be enjoined to defend this matter because there's fraud in this matter. So here's the thing. My mother has written 1 million letters begging Standard Bank to settle this. They refuse. She applies to be enjoined. They refuse. They apply for one interlocutory application after another as a smoke screen. When this matter, judge, is very easy. This matter can be sorted out in 30 minutes. It is that easy. She says now there's a rule nisi that I must hand over a car I know nothing about. Judge, I've never driven this car, and at this point, I don't even know where it is. Judge says, okay, you spoke of your mother. Where is she? She says, I don't know. Judge says, what? What do you mean you don't know? My daughter tells of all the attacks we are having, and for that reason, we are always hiding. We speak on a daily basis, but we don't tell each other where we are to protect each other. Judge says, wow. She says, I don't know. Judge said, Ms. Hammond, you said this matter is very easy. So I'm going to ask for your advice. How would you solve this matter? What do you think should be done? My daughter says, first of all, at the moment, there is so many open-ended, hanging interlocutory cases. I'd like us to apply the once and for all rule. Then I'd like my mother to be enjoined to handle her own story. This is not my story. She says, Judge, I'm going to tell you something personal. I have spent 5 years at law school. And today, the reason I spend so much time at law school is because I want to sit on the chair you are sitting on. I'm working very hard to be a lawyer. But today, I'm going to offer you all of that. Please put me on the stand. If I lie to you, make sure I don't practice law in South Africa. Get me arrested. Put me on the stand. That's my offer. Judge says, did you hear what you said? She said, yes. So what do you want me to do? What do you want from me? You said it's easy. She says, Judge, only one question. All this smoke screen for 4 years now is hiding not to answer one simple question. Who signed the installment sale agreement? We have overwhelming evidence that is not me, and Standard Bank insists that it's me. And their insistence raises a whole lot of violations. Put that aside. Put me on the stand. It's a Tuesday. Judge looks at my daughter. He says, Thursday. I think it was 23rd August. Said, Thursday, be here. I'll put you on the stand. And let me tell you this. You lie to me, not only want to practice law, I'm going to make sure the DPP is here to charge you. Do you understand? She says, my lord, I understand. Hey, Thursday comes. Good afternoon, family. Today we are going through the last day of court proceedings. Judge Fabricius had told my daughter that he's putting her on the stand on this day. And we were fortunate to have our brilliant lawyer with us who had prepared everything. He had done the thinking and he had done the papers. So for the first time I had a bit of a break, and the judge asked my daughter if she's still representing herself, and she said yes. And then he put her on the stand. At this point, my lawyer said to me, your daughter is on the stand. Go and sit next to her and support her. This made me very happy. I stood up and I went to sit next to her. But this confused the judge a bit. He didn't know who I am. If you remember, he had asked my daughter, where is your mother? And my daughter said, I don't know. He said, how can you know where your mother is? So he didn't know who I am, because my daughter had told the judge that she's not allowed to know where I am because of the dangers we are in. And then she sort of intimated the things that we go through, but they were also in the papers. Then the judge asked her if she's still representing herself, and she said yes. And then he not read her rights, but like told her how the process was going to go. But the judge came with a killer move today that Standard Bank did not anticipate. The judge said, I've actually just ordered the transcript from Justice Foury's court proceedings in December 2016. Because really everything we were talking about that day was based on that court hearing. Standard Bank had lied and said my daughter acknowledged that she signed the installment agreement, and then my daughter had promised the court that she's going to look after a car. So to get the rule nisi, they were relying on those two lies. So the judge said, I cannot in my conscience grant confirm the rule nisi if I don't have the transcript and I see for myself that Ms. Hammond did make those two utterances. So he then said, I ordered the transcript this morning. I've also requested them to first give us an audio tape so that my registrar can listen to it and tell me what Ms. Hammond said. In the meantime, they'll be busy transcribing. Okay, so we all sat there and he started asking my daughter questions. My daughter answered all the questions. He said, I have never said I know anything about the car. If anything, I've told Standard Bank, the judge, and anybody who has cared to ask me, I have told them exactly the truth, that I've never spoken to Standard Bank. This is not my car. I know nothing about the car. I don't have money to buy a car of this magnitude. So for that reason, I've always said that. When Judge Foree said to me, I want you to look after the car, my daughter stood up and said, I cannot take that responsibility. It is not my car. It is not even my house. So I cannot take the responsibility of looking after the car. So Justice Fabricia said, I want to see this in the transcript so that I know who is lying. Asked my daughter a few questions and then went back to the day of the attack. He said, please tell me what happened that day. So my daughter went on describing what happened that day. And when she started, she explained that she didn't know what was happening. She just came, she found the gate open, and when she got to inside the house, some men just grabbed her. And she said her biggest shock was when she came to the living rooms. She found me lying on my stomach with my arms tied at the back onto my feet. So I was lying there like a frog, and there were AK-47s in my head. And so, we had never spoken about this. I didn't even know what she saw. So she says, that is how I found my mother. And that's not how any child should ever see her mother. And then she started getting very emotional. And the judge said, okay, we stop. We stop talking about this. Let's talk about other things. And started asking her questions. She stood her ground. She discussed exactly what she discussed with Standard Bank during the proceedings of Justice Foree. Then the judge gave Standard Bank the chance to cross-examine her. Standard Bank, before giving Standard Bank a chance, he had reminded my daughter that he has to give the findings of the court proceedings that day to the DPP, who is the Director of Public Prosecutions, because there'll be two counts of fraud committed. There'll be a contempt of court, and there'll be perjury if my daughter is lying. So my daughter says she knows this. So when Standard Bank comes, they start with that the DPP is coming for the two perjuries, for the perjury and the contempt of court. And on top of that, you're going to lose your career. Don't lose your career for a car. Tell the court the truth. And my daughter says, that's all I'm going to do today, is to tell the truth. That's what I always tell. Then started questioning her. And at some point, Standard Bank came with a point that we discussed in a non-prejudice meeting. And my daughter said, I'm not obliged to answer that. I said, why? He said, because you are quoting something from a non-prejudice meeting. The judge said, Standard Bank, what you've just said now, did it come from a non-prejudice meeting? Yeah, my lord, yeah. And he said, cut it out. So this went on until Standard Bank finished. Before Standard Bank finished, The judge said, I have just received a message. My registrar tells me that she has listened to the audio tape, and Miss Hammond did say she signed the installment sale agreement. And Miss Hammond did say she'll look after the car. It sounds like she did say this. So at this point, I stood up. I traveled with my files. I stood up. I went to the file. I didn't want to disrespect the judge when he told us that he's ordered the transcript. I could have told him that I have it. I didn't tell him that. But if anybody says something that is not true, then I'll produce my transcript. So I stood up and I went to my files. I took the transcript file. I opened it. The judge is looking at me. I pulled the transcript. I took it to the judge. He said, what is that? I said, it's a transcript. He said, you have a transcript? I said, yes. Why? I said, because I've learned that Standard Bank denies everything. So for that reason, after every proceeding, I order the transcript so that when they deny, I can show them the truth. The judge said, bring it here. He said, give me time to read the transcript. The judge read the transcript. He was reading very fast. And then he went, there. The child has been consistent the entire time. She told Justice Fourie exactly what she told me today. This is her mother's car. She's got nothing to do with the car. She doesn't have capacity to look after it. She's never discussed anything regarding the car with anybody, and she's not going to take responsibility for the car. It is her mother's responsibility. Now I have to pause to highlight my realization. In this 4-year battle, Standard Bank has only gotten an order against me twice. Both times in my absence. Both times through unethical conduct. Both times through blatantly lying to the judge. What saddens me here is that the system allows such glitches, where Goliaths trample on the rights of little Davids with impunity. Summary judgment was wrongfully granted behind my back, whilst I was left waiting to be heard in court. Granting Rule Nisi was the worst abuse of power, as the judge was intentionally misled. Again, this was the same conduct Standard Bank was trying to slip on this day's proceedings. But fortunately, Judge Fabricius insisted on checking the facts. Judge Fabricius said, Standard Bank, I cannot make the Rule Nisi binding. I cannot give you the order. There was silence in court. And then he said, regarding the whereabouts of the car, I'm satisfied that Miss Hammond has nothing to do with it. She's been consistent throughout. He said, I also read that for the last 3 years, the mother has been trying to be enjoined. Then at some point, mid-sentence, he just stopped. And during all this time, he looks at both of us during all this time, and he was a bit confused. So mid-sentence, he just said, Miss Hammond, where is your mother? Please tell me the truth. Where is your mother? No, he said, how old is your mother? Because I know I don't look my age. So the judge was a bit confused. He couldn't place me as her mother. Then I stood up and introduced myself. And he said, you came. I said, yes, my lord. My daughter told me that you asked after me, so I came to honor your request. He said, fantastic. He said, Standard Bank, Dr. Mngadi is here. Is she under oath? And they said, no. He said, What I've read is that for 3 years she's been trying to be enjoined to the proceedings and you are refusing. Why is that? Can I join her today? Can I make an order now and join her to the proceedings? They said no. They were adamant. He asked a few questions a few times in a different way and they said no. And he said, explain to me what prejudice would it place to the bank to enjoin the owner of the car to the proceedings? He says Miss Hammond doesn't know where the car is. From the day of that violent attack at their home, she left the home to be safe in a hidden place. She doesn't know where the car is. The person who knows where the car is sitting amongst us. Why don't we enjoin her and ask her where the car is? They said no. I remember Judge Fabricius said, why not? He says, this case may be easily solvable if one just addresses everything to the crux of the case and gets on with it. He said, I'm not going to appoint myself as case manager in the agent court either, but I need to know what prejudice would Standard Bank suffer if we enjoined Dr. Mngadi today. He said, take instructions. The senior counsel went to take instructions. There was no chance they could say no, unless they didn't want to know where the car is. He came back and he said, okay, my client says we can enjoin her. Then he said, okay, now we adjourn. I'm going to go and have tea and I need to see you at my chambers, both parties, after this. After the tea, we went to chambers. He said, I need both of you to go and draft orders and then bring them to me for my signature. And this case has to move forward. We went. Standard Bank went to do their order. Our lawyer went to do his order. We came back to chambers. The judge took their order, read it, and said, I don't want this. He took our lawyer's order, read it, signed it, and he said, that is the order for today. No rule nisi, no contempt of court, no perjury. I was enjoined officially. I was part of the court proceedings. Auf Deutsch sagen wir es fertig. It was finished. Standard Bank did not have another opportunity to bully my child. If you remember, before, during, and after every hearing, I used to write to Standard Bank and beg them for a round table so that we can solve this amicably. On this occasion, that was over. I wrote a letter of demand. I calculated every cent that I had paid to the bank. I took the original price of the vehicle and I sent 2 demands. I said, 1, I need the fraud investigated. I don't want to hear anything about dealerships. I want to know inside the bank who bypassed bank system, because that carries a lot of other connotations. It's not only fraud. Who bypassed? You see, the banks are linked to the government institutions. That's why when you go to the bank and you give them your ID number, your picture comes up. That's why you can go to the bank and apply for your ID. It is the same as the NATIS registration certificate. That is the ID of the car. There is no way you can load a wrong engine number, a wrong VIN number, and a wrong year of registration to a bank system and the bank accepts it. you have to physically use your ID code to bypass it. In the letter of demand, I said investigation, because that person has to come out. And I said, here's the final figure for the car. We settle this and we move on. But the reason the person to date has never been brought forward, do you know what the reason is? Because that person will come down with half of top management, all the way to Gokstad. That's why until today we don't know yet who bypassed a bank system to allow a fraud to go through. We still need to know that. So it's of moment to note that everything I've discussed thus far has been fully ventilated, adjudicated in court, and ruled on. It is public knowledge. Importantly, it is of utmost public interest. I've received endless requests for the judgments. I've never bothered to check if any part of this matter was reported. I just had no interest in that. I have my own papers. But the public can note that not all judgments get reported. The court decides what judgments are reportable. So that is for you to conduct the homework and find the judgments. I will return to this matter when the correct time comes. What is available, however, is the court papers, which are somehow understood from the law library that no one can find. So I leave it to you to go and find the papers. I have mine. The teaching moment here is that we are obsessed with the destination. So before you even understand the veracity of the matter, everyone wants to know, did you win or lose? I think you remember I told you, it is not about win or lose. By virtue of going to court, in my humble opinion, you have already lost. That's why in my practice, I only use non-adversarial approach. I mediate cases. I don't go to court. I only go to court if I'm dragged to court. Another thing is, for me, what is most important, other than the destination, is the journey itself. I learned a lot through this experience. I was forced to read beyond. So the journey of this experience have taught me more than anything else. So I'm very grateful to the journey, and I will make sure that I use my findings to the benefit of my people. A lot of people have also asked, what academic papers have I published? I think I've touched on this in my past videos. I don't do that. I don't write for first-class journals. I write lived research findings. I conduct lived research. I look at what my people need on the ground, and I research what solutions I can bring to the ground. That's what I document as a business plan, and then I implement it. So I'm not interested in journal articles. That's not me. There's nothing wrong with journal articles, and maybe it suits some people. That is not me. Unfortunately, in academia, especially in South Africa, it happens worldwide though, you are paced according to the papers you publish. Then you get different levels of professorships according to your publications. So I refuse to be dictated to by white supremacy on how I conduct my career. I don't want to write for journals. So how can my career depend on that? Abroad, however, they're more open-minded. So when it comes to your time to be promoted or for whatever reason, you can motivate what you do with your time instead of publishing. So the lived research that I conduct, for me, it's actually superior to anything everything else because it helps my people in real time. So I produce that because that's my academic work. What I have done then with this case is I've documented it and made it an academic case study, which I will run moot courts wherever people are interested. I will approach universities locally and run a moot court for law students to play with the facts and let's see what they come up with. Because it's a matter of public interest, I don't want it to die. So I'm going to keep it in the academic circles. Abroad, they've already adopted it as a case study. So I will approach local universities, but I have written a solid case study on this case. Then comes the matter of settlement. I wasn't going to discuss settlement, but I've been getting a lot of requests to discuss the settlement because apparently Standard Bank shuts the door and say this is settled. No, I will come back to that in the next video. So back to the settlement. Let me first say this was not a win or lose for me. This was a desperate fight of a black widowed mother to free her daughter from the devil's claws. Secondly, it was about a teaching moment to teach Goliath that I don't get bullied. They will never touch my car. And I achieved both. That said, the journey for me was more educational than the win. So in my next communication, it wasn't that asking for a round table to settle amicably. It wasn't that. I sent a proper letter of demand. So this letter of demand, they immediately said, yeah, we're doing it. And then what wasted time was the up and down because there were clauses that they fought so hard not to have in the settlement agreement. So obviously the first thing they're going to take out is the investigation of fraud. And because I wanted the car settled, I let that slide. Then they insisted on a clause that says, look, we acknowledge that you want to pay all the money you owe. Oh, just to reverse a bit. So during this settlement moment, remember that phone call that always offers me the latest model? This phone call came and they offered me the car. And I told them, I don't get fed by white supremacy. I earn my keep. And in law, there's something called unjustified enrichment. I don't want to have anything that I didn't work for and earn fully. So that's why I said I calculated every cent that I've paid. I calculated the cost of the car and I offered them the difference as my settlement. So they accepted this, but they were insisting on a clause that says, I will never sue Standard Bank for anything, not their employees, not their cats, not their flower pots outside, nothing. I will never look at Standard Bank. I thought, I don't take instructions from you. I said to them, I will not sue you for anything else except fraud and gross negligence. So we fought on that for a long time. What gross negligence? What fraud? I said, if I don't have that in the settlement agreement, there's no settlement. I pay you every cent that is outstanding in my car, cash, and then I want whatever you want. I won't sue you for anything else except fraud and gross negligence. And we signed on that. I won't sue them for anything else except for fraud and gross negligence. So that's where the settlement ended. Paid them their money, they transferred the car back to us, and that was the end. My learnings from this experience, only two. One, we, the poor, uneducated, hungry people, do not have access to the law. We do not have protection from Goliaths. Two, the value of knowledge. That's all I want to talk about today. That's what I learned from this experience. So let's start to access to law. The Goliaths, they understand the legal system so well, they invest in it. Their annual budget for litigation can educate the entire country. When they litigate against you, they will never let you see the trial. They will trap you in the periphery. You will never see the trial. Because if I had access to the trial, I would have tested the installment sale agreement. I would have subpoenaed the SAPS forensic laboratory. I would have called forensic experts. I would have called legislators. And we tested. And I would have proven that it is a forgery. But without a trial, judges are limited to solve only the question before them that day in court. So what they do is they don't allow you to get to trial. They want to hit and run quickly. They take you there. They take you to default judgment. If you try and they do summary judgment. The day they do summary judgment, the writ of execution is issued. And at that time, the truck is outside your house. Do you know where that car is going to spend the night? At the same dealership. And that dealership is going to buy that car at the fraction of the price you bought it. Who's going to pay the difference? You. The bank is going to sit on your throat and they'll say, look, the car was 10 Rand. We sold the car for 3 Rand. We still need 7 Rands and you are responsible for it. So now you are paying for a car you don't have. And the dealership is doing a brand new transaction with the car. And they roll it a few times. So if I cannot prove this legally, how else can I do it? If they just go hit and run and they're out. So if you think you're going to fight back and do what I did, for 4 years, I was in court all the time, but I never saw the trial. They trap you in urgent interlocutory things. You just go like this. You'll never see the trial. Even if the trial were to come, the trial date is 5 years away. So you have to wait 5 years. I told you about the lawyers. They're all briefed. Wherever you go, they'll tell you, it's a conflict of interest. We can't do it. When you find a lawyer with a brain, you know what they do? They give him a killer retainer. And they drop you. You'll never fight against them. Even if you were to find a lawyer, an ethical lawyer, do you have the money? Do you know the Justice for matter was in court for 3 days? Do you know what a senior counsel costs per day just to appear in court? It's between 80,000 and 150,000. If he's there for 3 days, it's 240,000 to 450,000, not negotiable. So they take senior counsels to court. You have to match them. 240,000, where are you going to get that from? It's not even worth 240,000. So your home is not worth 240,000. How are you going to pay that for legal fees? For one appearance, it's not even the case. One appearance. And that money does not even consider preparation, drafting, none of that. Only appearance. Where are you going to get that from? So by virtue of not being able to access the law, we need to question the constitutional promise that says everyone is equal everyone is equal before the law. How? How can I be equal to somebody I'm not standing in the same platform with? I have no access to the law. So how can I be equal in front of the law? It's not possible. We need to question that constitutional promise and a whole lot of other things that are promised in the Constitution. Things like, free market, you can go and buy a house. With what? With what? We need to look at this. Then I want to talk about the value of knowledge. I didn't come to you for any other reason except to ask you to stand up, to open your eyes, and for us to start doing things for ourselves. You see, everyone is screaming about qualifications now. That's just noise. That's just information. Education does not happen in university. University just collect these useless papers. That's not where the education happens. You know, there's the first 1,000 days of a child. That's about 2.6 years or 2.7 years. If you miss those 1,000 days, something just closes. You'll never rescue that child again. So the most important thing we need to do is to make sure that the first 1,000 days are properly covered. There's a huge jump between the first 1,000 days to university. We will look at all of that, but we need to do things properly. So what I want to do from tomorrow is I want to start talking about the educational program. I'm going to explain how the entire program works, and if we agree, we're going to come together and we're going to start doing it for ourselves. Educating our children, looking after our elders. We build old age homes. We go fetch our grannies from the leaking shacks and we put them in a safe place. We get nurses, we get caregivers to look after them, and then we educate our children. We can do it ourselves. We don't need anybody. So tomorrow I am delivering the first education video, and then we take it from there.